So now we are in part 2 of this episode. I'm particularly really excited about this episode, you guys, because if you follow MoodKandi and I's content, you may have seen that they posted a video. Well, let's start with they posted videos about the fact they have escaped from Scientology, and then they also have brought up that Sullivan King is let's just I don't want to say like I guess I want to say alleged current Scientologist. That's the best way to put it with everything. And they know because they used to be in it. And we're gonna kind of talk about that. And I made a video basically saying, like, wow, I haven't forgotten that Sullivan King is a Scientologist. And I just kind of wanted to use this as a way to talk about accountability with artists and how he hasn't said anything or responded to any of this. And I think that it brings up a really good way to talk about this kind of stuff, you guys, and how he should kind of be held accountable for this. And if you're wondering, well, what's so bad about Scientology? We're going to learn together, because I know very little about Scientology, you guys. I have kept myself from info dumping myself and learning all about it because I wanted to learn with you, and we will learn together why Scientology is not good. So if you're like me and you kind of already knew that it wasn't the best, you're going to learn more. And let's just get right into it. So what is your upbringing with Scientology? Were you born into it?
So I wasn't born into it, but my mom got into it when I was very young. So my parents divorced when I was 2. My dad had like weekend custody, whatever. We mostly live with mom. When I was 5 or 6, so like very young, she met a dude. They started dating. They eventually got married. He was a Scientologist, still is a
Oh,
Scientologist, and so he got her into it. My little brother is like 2, 3 years younger than me. So we were both very, very young when she got into it. And because she had like primary custody, she brought us along with her. And we were like young enough to not know any better. Like that was
yeah.
just how we were being raised.
We're like
And
toddlers at this
also,
point.
my little brother was a toddler. I was like, I think I was like 8 or 9
Oh,
when
that's
they
still
officially
such an
got
impressionable.
married.
That's such an impressionable age. That's
Right.
that's
And
the age I
like,
work with, and that's like
right.
the
And
most
and
impressionable.
And like the family dynamic there was like dad had partial custody like every other weekend because he was kind of the fuck up parent, and like he was, he saw us and he had us for some of the time. So I don't want to say like he was a deadbeat dad, but I know for a fact he never paid child support. So like by definition he was a deadbeat dad, I guess.
Yeah.
Like it was a lot of like complicated family dynamics, right? But kind of the upshot of that is mom is the responsible parent. Like we knew at a very young age, like both of our parents love us very much, but if we have like an emergency or if there is a problem, mom is the responsible one. Like she's the one
Yeah.
who's going to fix that. So to then have mom getting into Scientology and saying like this is the reasonable, rational thing to do, and then dad on the other side being
Yeah.
like, no, like it's a cult, it's you shouldn't do that, and like he was very aggressively against it. Unfortunately, just looked like dad being irresponsible and crazy,
Yeah.
um, and mom being like rational,
Yeah.
you know?
No, that's working with kids. That everything you just said, it just makes perfect sense. Unfortunately, that age is the age where the kid, especially, yeah, ugh, yes. Kids that age, they just want to be loved by their parents, and especially if there is the divorced aspect, the one that's seen as
Hmm.
the responsible one. Kids will crave that admiration from that parent more, so you want to be seen as accepted more from that parent. So that's so valid. That it's just like that's the guess the perfect age to kind of do that. I hate saying
Hmm.
that word, but like I said, I work with this age
Yeah.
and I just know like what I know. And that's like that perfect age for that. So, what are some key components of being a Scientologist? How does it differ from other religions and cults?
So Scientology is based on this idea that the founder of the religion, L. Ron Hubbard, figured out the secrets to the universe, and that by doing Scientology classes, which they're courses, training, taking a bunch of classes specifically in Scientology churches about Scientology and about like how he said the way that the universe works, right? The secrets of the universe. And by additionally getting spiritual counseling, which in Scientology is called auditing, getting a bunch of auditing. You do those two things together. And at a certain point, once you have completed enough courses and you've gotten enough auditing, you will be a fully like enlightened spiritual being. And that going forward in your like future lives, Scientology believes in reincarnation, like past lives. So if you get up to a certain point going forward in your future lives, you will no longer be affected by the material universe. And if you do reach this point, then you get like total spiritual freedom. So you won't be sad anymore. You won't get sick anymore. You won't have accidents anymore. Like everything in your life will just be going really well
That's
because you're this
insane.
big, like enlightened
Like,
spiritual being.
I don't know why. Like when you're talking about that, right? And you're saying like, oh, there you isn't Danny Masterson a Scientologist? And where is
Oh yeah,
he right now?
right.
In
Right.
prison.
His whole family are
Sorry, I'm just like
Scientologists.
when
He
you were
was
saying
raised
that,
in
I was like,
Scientology.
I was about to be like, seems like it didn't work out too great for him, the Mr.
Right.
Enlightened Being.
Right. So the way that it works and the way that they kind of get you is that um, Scientology is composed of kind of equal parts of shit that L. Ron Hubbard stole from other religions and psychology and psychiatry and like things that were around in the 30s, 40s, 50s that he had been exposed to, right? So there are little pieces of things that make sense and that work because he stole them from other places. And then just like a heaping fucking ladleful of control and bullshit like on the top. So when you first get in, you don't see all the like high control stuff. What you see is like, here is a class that you can do for $50 that will help you um, improve your communication skills and like do these different drills to like help get over social anxiety and like problems with public speaking, for example, right? Which is a thing that like a lot of people have
Yeah,
trouble
like
with. And if
that
they
seems
go and they're
like
like, oh,
that seems
right,
very innocent. All right.
super innocent. Or like a class about like how to manage your money better, financial management. Like, oh, you're always having problems with money. Here's this class on like based on the writings of L. Ron Hubbard on like how to manage your money better. Like it's a lot of
It's always
little
the based upon the writings that we got to focus on. It's based upon the writings
mhm.
of this. Like honestly, the more you're talking about it, I'm like, ooh, this kind of screams IDLP. And how
Oh
he
yeah.
Bill Gothard
Yeah,
just
yeah.
came up with a scoop of bullshit and was like, here's a religion.
Hmm.
We love
Yep.
cults. Just kidding. We don't, but like
So the way that it works is very like anybody who has studied cults, anybody who has any experience with cults or has kind of like looked at a bunch of different cults, will you will see there is a commonality in how they all operate because they find your weak spot, they find the thing that you want to fix about yourself or that you need help with. They present a solution to this, whether or not it's a solution that'll actually work. It seems like a good solution. Then they isolate you from your friends and family, from anybody who's not supportive, like anybody who tells you not to do it, anybody who's not 100% supportive of what you're doing. They will basically turn you against them.
how do they
One
do
of
that?
the, so in Scientology, one of the like foundational beliefs is, okay, you're an immortal spiritual being. You have infinite power. Why can you not access that power right now? It's because through your many lifetimes, you've picked up a bunch of trauma and a bunch of like bad shit happened to you. You died a bunch of times, whatever, whatever. And all that stuff is still like in your head and holding you back. And there are people in your present life who either remind you of people in your past lives that harmed you or are actively still trying to harm you and
It
trying to hold you
seems like
down.
so innocent when you like look at the surface level. Like if you think of it like a cake, right? You think
Uh-huh.
of like the sprinkles or the little frosting like decorational bits, and like that's what that seems like. It seems so like
It seems
innocent.
so innocent, but then you actually get into it,
Yeah.
and that's how they get you because it
Oh my
seems like, okay, well
God.
that could make sense, that could make sense, that could
No,
make
literally,
sense.
like when it's
And
super
then
surface level,
and then you're in it and now you invested money into it because the intro stuff is all $50, $100, 200
that's
bucks. But if you
crazy.
want to actually do services that are higher level, if you want to actually start doing the services that um, will eventually lead to total spiritual freedom, the absolute cheapest, like cheapest thing that you can get is $1,500, and most things are $2,500 or more. So by the time you're up to a point where you should be getting spiritual enlightenment, you have now given like a minimum of $50,000 to the church, probably more.
Man, like now, so oh my God, that's
Right.
insane. To think about the amount of money that people must spend. Think like, say we just talked
Oh
about
yeah.
Danny Masterson, right? I
Mm-hmm.
So do people, okay, so you just said they give all this money to the church, right? Does that usually come from their own jobs or does it come from jobs they can get in Scientology?
So it really depends. With Scientology specifically, they're not getting a lot of brand new members anymore. Like up until the 90s, they were getting a lot of new members. And then in the early 90s, there was a Time magazine article that came out exposing Scientology, which got a lot of people
I
out
didn't
of it and away from
I
it.
didn't know that. Wait, really? I
Yeah. So there was, it was I
That's
think
Go Time
1992
magazine.
or 1995. It was like early 90s, and there was a whole expose that they published. Um, and when I worked for the church, so I fast forward a little bit, I worked for the church from when I was 15 until I was like 28. So I worked for the church for a long time.
That's like
And
early
when I
2000s
first
then. That's like right.
2006,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was trying
2006.
to do the mental math there and I was like, I said 2005 in my head. So like, go me for that quick math. But like,
No, 2006 to 2018. Um, and
that's a
when
really
I
big part of your
first,
life.
it was over a decade. When I first started working for the church, I was obviously the youngest one there. Everybody else had been working there for a lot longer than me, and like Scientology at this point is basically comprised of people who are really, really old and got in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and second and third and fourth generation Scientologists who have just been raised in it. And that's
Oh,
like
wow.
90% of who's in Scientology at this point. So, like, I heard stories when I joined staff, like, people would talk about it because they were on staff, like, they worked for the church in the 90s when this article came out. And they said, like, that was the turning point. Like, that was the thing for them, that, like, people stopped coming in, people, like, left, stopped doing services, they stopped getting as many new people in, and it's been just downhill from there. And then the internet, and like it
Yeah.
became very easy to look up, things on the internet, and so it's really, really been declining, which is great. We love that.
Literally, I was
But
like,
yeah,
yeah, let's go. Let's do a
we
little,
love that.
like I said, Go Time magazine. Hell yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We
And
love
that's one that
journalists. No,
I
we love
don't
journalists
really
who
hear
research.
people talking about it
I
either.
didn't
Like
even
it's
know
really
that.
interesting to me when I hear about people like, here's a timeline of Scientology, here's what happened. Like they always talk about the internet being a thing. They always talk about the anonymous attacks in the early 2000s being a thing, but that apparently that Time magazine article was really
I
like the
wonder if I can
first
find it.
big
If I
thing.
find it, I'm
I
gonna
hope you
clip it.
do.
If I do,
I
I'm
hope
gonna
you
clip it
do.
onto here. I'm gonna put a little clip of what it looks like because that's I love finding shit like that. Like there has to
Mhm.
be a way I can get my eyes on that to
Mhm.
yeah, I knew that. So I was aware with Scientology because it was very like brief knowledge, but I did know that something happened in the early 2000s that made people turn against the church. Like I did know that. I didn't know what it
Yeah.
was. I didn't know if it was like social media, but that makes sense. It was an article because in that time, like it was. I mean, this is like it's not the same thing, but the
So
comparison they the whole like article with OxyContin and everything that's what outed that. Like journalism at that
mhm.
point was very much like starting to come up at that time. So
So the way it happened was in the early 90s, there was the Time magazine article, and then there wasn't much of anything until I want to say 2005 or so. And then there was a Rolling Stone article that came out that was a very similar type of thing that was like a undercover journalist went into a church and like did a deep dive.
nice.
Um,
We go that journalist, I hope you're doing well.
And around the same time, and I don't know for sure if this was before or after, but around the same time, um, Anonymous, like the 4chan group Anonymous, targeted the church and started
Ooh.
doing a lot of protests, like physical protests outside of all of the churches, like internationally, um, graffiti, vandalism. I worked for the church when this was happening, and I remember coming in one day and our fax machine had printed just black pages, everything, all the paper that was in it, printed out a whole like
Oh,
ream
that
of
just
black
gave me
pages.
chills. Like to think of what I have said this to all my friends. To think of what Anonymous can actually do, but they
Yeah,
haven't, is
yeah.
insane. Like
Oh
if you think
yeah.
about the things that they have exposed and what they
Hmm.
haven't, like they I don't even want to know what they have their hands on and what they can. Woo,
I don't know what they're doing these days, honestly.
me neither.
Like, I
They
kind of
come out
lost
of
track of them.
they only come out when something needs to be outed. Like that's one of those things where I
Mhm.
found that like with the Jeffrey Epstein, that's when the last time that they really, I'm pretty sure, came out and like posted a bunch of stuff. I think they're the
Makes
ones
sense.
weren't they the ones who released the flight logs? I'm pretty sure they
I don't
were.
remember. Probably. That
Right? I
sounds
was
like
like,
them.
they literally just pop out of nowhere to release some like crazy shit and then disappear again. Like they be doing. So
Mhm. I was in the church when those attacks were happening, and it was very like scary. I was 13,
um,
14, 15,
oh
16.
my
Like I was a
God.
teenager, and I didn't
Oh my
I didn't
God.
know
Oh,
anything.
I'd be
So
terrified if I like showed
I
up
was
and like the printer just printed black paper. Like what?
mhm. It was just like
I think there
black
was a ghost.
paper all over the floor. Like, and then
That's
we got a
insane.
lot of prank phone calls with like voice changers, like scary voice prank phone calls. And
That's actually
I was the
terrifying
receptionist.
though.
It
Like,
was really scary. And like, I don't, they did the right thing. Like, I'm not upset at them for it, but
yeah.
going through it as somebody in the cult was very scary because, so rewinding a little bit back to like how Scientology controls its members and
Yeah,
how they
I was gonna
like
segue into that.
get into that. So so jumping off from this point, right, that natural state for a person is to be like this immortal spiritual being, and it's not natural for them to get sick, it's not natural for them to have accidents, it's not natural for them to be doing badly. So if they are doing badly, if they do get sick, if they do have an accident, make a mistake, literally anything, then that means that they are connected to what in Scientology is called a suppressive person. And a suppressive
I've
person
heard that
is,
term.
so Scientology teaches that 2.5% of all humanity is basically evil. Everybody else is basically good and just like trying to get on with it and trying to survive. And 2.5% of humans are, they've been driven so crazy by all the bad shit that has happened to them in all their past lives that all they want to do is destroy. And all they can do is bring other people down and destroy them. And the ways that you can tell that somebody is a suppressive person is if they're always talking shit, if they are against like betterment or self-help groups, if they fight against groups that are like helping mankind, if they don't respond to treatment, including Scientology. So like if somebody does Scientology and is like, it didn't work for me, it's because they're a suppressive person.
Mm.
um, or because they have a suppressive person actively like harming them. You can see where this is going. You can
Oh,
see
that's
how
like a
this
this
then
is like that's like a what's a perfect key to
perfect
controlling
storm.
people. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then further, like additionally, the only way that you open yourself up to um, allowing a suppressive person to hurt you, right? Because you're an immortal spiritual being. You're all powerful. How could you let somebody else hurt you? How could you
Yeah.
like you're responsible for everything. Like you are infinitely powerful. So if somebody hurts you, you did something to cause that.
But wow,
Right.
that's
You see, like it's a very
it's like a
specific chain of
manipulation.
logic.
Yeah, it's a manipulation
Uh-huh.
chain. Like it's no matter what, you're still not doing good enough.
Yep, you're
It's like
still
a
responsible.
it's
If you get hurt in any way, if you get sick, if you get cancer, if you get
like if you
sexually
bump
assaulted,
your if
any
you
of it.
oh my I
Yeah,
was
if you stub your toe, any of it. It is because you did a
wait, hold
bad
on.
thing.
Let's roll back to what you just said. If you get sexually assaulted, they will
Yeah,
blame
what did you
you.
do? Yes, 100%, even if you're a minor.
So that's okay. There we got one problem. You know, anyone being like, "What's wrong with Scientology?" If you haven't,
Mhm.
there's giant one right there. The
Yep.
fuck?
There are dozens, probably, I
No
mean,
wonder they
definitely
stood with
hundreds,
Danny
but at least
Masterson so hard.
dozens.
No
Yeah,
wonder.
there are dozens and dozens and dozens of victims who have come forward. Hundreds of victims who have not come forward. Dozens and
Like
dozens and
that just
dozens of victims
makes
who
like
have.
my spine just crawl just thinking about that.
Hmm.
Like that's the
Right.
oh my
And
god.
also, remember, you're an immortal spiritual being. You've lived hundreds, thousands, millions of past lives. You're not a child. You're an infinite being in a small body.
So even when you're a minor, they think that you're still completely responsible for your actions then?
Correct.
Your brain
Correct.
literally is informed. There's a reason
They don't.
why.
So
But like,
Scientologists do not believe that the brain has anything to do with thinking. Scientology specifically teaches that the brain
I
is like
love,
a physical switchboard where, electrical impulses get sent to control the body, but does not have anything to do with actually like memory, thinking,
I
logic,
love
like
how
any
they
of
like
that stuff.
call themselves Scientologists, like it's having to do with science. But
Hmm.
my brain
Oh
is like,
no, totally unscientific.
my brain's malfunctioning for a second because I'm like, don't call yourself something that is literally like relating to science and is like, nah, science, that ain't a thing.
Yeah.
Doctors,
It's a total
nah.
smokescreen. It's a
Like
total
that,
smokescreen. And
the
like when
fact that
I
they say
came
it's
out, when I left,
insane.
I had to unlearn so much just basic stuff. Like I had to learn what the brain does. I didn't know what the brain
No, that's
does.
so bad. That
I
was gonna say, like, that makes so you didn't. So when did you learn then how the brain actually acts and how it interacts with your body? Like, when did you really fully learn that?
probably like a year or two after leaving. Um, I started getting an idea of it pretty quickly because I got into therapy within a year.
Yeah.
And like talked about it. My therapist, my first therapist, was basically just a dude that I could go to and be like, "Is this normal? Let me describe this scenario. Is this
Yeah.
normal?" And then he would be like, "No, that's not normal," or
Yeah.
he would be like, "Yeah, that's pretty normal."
Sometimes you need,
And
I feel like
it was
that's
just a dude I
good.
could bounce stuff off of and be like, "Here's how I'm responding to this
I feel like
situation.
that's the what
Do I have PTSD?"
I was like, I feel like that's the best thing you can do with what happened. Like at that, with what you're describing, they
Yeah.
basically fed you false knowledge. And it was kind of the same thing with the
Mhm.
IDLP cult as well, is that they literally fed you this knowledge that this is
Mhm.
correct. This is how the world is formed. This is that. And it's
Right.
like,
Exactly.
it's
And
actually
you don't
not.
have
And it's just a bunch of
so
bullshit. Like, it's literally just a
right.
bunch of non facts that he just came up with. Like, it's just insane that
Right.
that
But
can
you have
be, oh my God.
everybody around you, all of the trusted
Yeah.
adults, all of your teachers. So my mom got into Scientology, I was going to just like a public elementary school. When I finished fifth grade and it was time to go to middle school, she started teaching at a Scientology school, private school that was run by
I
Scientology, and
forget
so
they
I
have
went
school
there.
public
So
schools.
for the entire rest of my schooling, I went there. They have there's two or three schools I believe still open in the like Los Angeles area, one in San Diego. Um, there might still be one in San Francisco. I believe there's one in Sacramento. Like California and Florida are the two Scientology
I might
hotspots.
have to go check that out just for fun.
It's if you Google Applied Scholastics, the like Scientology front group that does schools is Applied Scholastics, and you can see
I'm
very easily
I am
if they
so
have
because
schools near you.
I'm not gonna say where I live, but I'm just gonna say one of those places is very close to me, and
Hmm.
on my peep just because
Yeah,
just because we had this conversation, I just want to see what it looks like. So
go
what?
for it.
Okay, so what are like some of the like biggest rules and regulations? Like we kind of touched upon some of them, but like
Yeah.
what are some more that kind of just really create the chaos that it seems like Scientology is?
So some of the specific rules and regulations are gonna be different depending on if you're just a like public Scientologist, meaning you go to church, you do courses, you get auditing, but you don't work for the church.
Mhm.
And then there's a different set of rules for if you work for like your local church. So my first, I think it was 5 years from like November 2006 till January 2012. I worked for my local church. And the way that that works is just literally like if you today went into like your local church and you're like, hey, I want to work here, 20 hours a week, 40 hours a week, whatever. So you have your own house, you have your own car, you have to pay your own bills. The money that you get from the church is pretty like pocket change. Like when I worked there, for 5, 6 years, the most I ever made on like a Christmas bonus week was $200, but normally it was $20 or less. And
God.
I was working like 60, 70, 80 hours a week at that point because I was a minor and didn't have a day job. I had
Yeah.
graduated high school when I was 15. Um,
Because the
and
school
nobody would
system's
hire me.
different.
Nobody would hire me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a very different school system. So so there's a different set of rules for that, and then the Sea Organization, SEA, like the ocean, Sea Organization is where you join Scientology for your whole life. This is the billion-year contract that everybody talks about,
Mhm.
which you sign up and they provide your housing, they provide your clothes, they provide your food, and you just do nothing but work for the church 24/7 for the rest of your life. That's it.
I did not even
So
know that was a thing.
so in 2012, January 2012, I joined the Sea Org with my husband at the time, and was in the Sea Org until October of 2018. So there is a different set of rules. So there's rules that
You were
apply
like
to everybody.
in it. Oh my God.
I was deep in it. So there's rules that apply to everybody, and then there's rules that only apply to some, and there's rules that only apply to Sea Org members. So it's going to be different,
So let's talk
depending
about
on
the
what you're
C
doing.
ones then. Like what
Sea Org?
this is one that I think about. Did you guys have a dress code? Like, did you have to dress a
Yes.
certain way? What was your dress code?
Yes. So we had uniforms. They provided uniforms for us, and it was I've got a picture somewhere. I'll try to send to you, but it's very like naval military, dark blue pants, button down, long sleeve,
Oh, I
white
know
shirt or
exactly
blue
what picture you're
shirt,
talking about. I've seen it. Yes,
um,
I've seen it.
dark blue jacket,
Oh,
hat
wow.
with like the logo, like a
You had to
captain's
wear the
hat
hat?
kind of thing. Depends. Like it changed kind of the politics of like what uniform was in or out kind of changed depending on who was in charge. But sometimes you had to wear the hat. Sometimes for women you had like a little neck cravat thing that you had to wear. It really like how much they enforced dress code really kind of shifted with the wind. Sometimes you had to wear the jacket. Sometimes you could roll up your sleeves. No tattoos, like no visible tattoos. All the
Mm.
tattoos that I got when I was in the Sea Org were all in places that I could hide because you're not allowed to visible tattoos. You couldn't
But you're
have
allowed to
any
have
kind of
tattoos?
technically. They just can't
They
show. You just
Oh,
can't
okay. So
show anybody
they
your
didn't like
tattoos.
actually define that. It was more just no visible tattoos. Okay.
Correct. Um,
What about
you
language?
know,
Like were you allowed to swear? Is swearing a thing?
yes. Everyone in the Sea Org swears,
Okay. I was
like
like,
insane amounts of
remember, I've
swearing.
so for those who don't know, I grew up Mormon, so I'm trying to spot some differences
Hmm.
and like the difference of what like rules and regulations are. Like I couldn't drink coffee, I couldn't drink alcohol.
Hmm.
Um,
So you can't drink alcohol if you're in the Sea Org, except for one day a year, the
what
Christmas party. You're allowed to have alcohol, and you can get drunk at the Christmas party, but
about
that's it.
weed?
You're not allowed. No, no weed ever. No,
No
nothing
drugs?
ever. No drugs. No drugs,
Okay.
including Tylenol, including
I was
painkillers.
about to ask, so opioids too? You can't do
No
any.
painkillers.
Oh
Nothing.
wow. So
You would
even if you're
have
like dying
you
of
have
back pain,
Scientologists like nope. Like some people will do it, but it is technically prohibited.
wait a second.
Um,
If they have back pain though, doesn't that mean that they have a suppressive person in their life?
yep,
Like let's say if
that's
someone has
correct.
chronic back pain. Like
Yep.
that's I'm sorry,
I
my brain,
actually
I'm starting to
So
really put
I
the
actually
pieces together
knew
now.
multiple people. I knew multiple people in the Sea Org who had uh uh EDS, multiple sclerosis,
God.
chronic back pain, blood clots, like all kinds of
So
chronic
what happens with
conditions.
that kind of stuff then? If you're seen as like
So you're not allowed to take
bad.
painkillers. You're not allowed to take painkillers, and you specifically are not allowed to take painkillers and then go in session and get auditing. So the way that you like resolve being suppressed is through auditing. So if you are going to like resolve that, then you absolutely cannot take painkillers. Or you can take painkillers and then they like basically kick you out for being sick.
That oh my God, that's so insane. Like the amount that it makes you just for a lot. Like you don't even have to be in a C organization to really have them basic you relying on them basically and saying that like
Mhm.
if anything happens to you that's bad, come to us and we'll fix it. Even though
Correct.
like they're not gonna fix it in the right way. Like
Yeah.
that's so insane
So
to me.
So one of the things is like if you're connected to a suppressive person, right, then that makes you a potential trouble source, which is bad. That's bad. That's, if you get sick, if you get injured, if you make a mistake, if you have an accident, you're PTS. You're a potential trouble source, which means you're connected to a suppressive
That's so
person. Now,
insane.
what does it mean? Let's examine this. What does it mean to be connected to a suppressive person? Well, it could be somebody who's actively in your life. It could be your mom that you see once a year who misses you and wants you to leave the cult that you're in, but because she's speaking out against the cult, you have no choice but to
Yeah.
either handle her to stop saying that and like support Scientology, or disconnect and cut her out of your life entirely so that you can stop getting sick.
That's the isolation part that it gets
That's the
into.
isolation part. It
Oh
also
my gosh.
includes reading any articles written by a suppressive person, watching any movies or TV shows made by a suppressive person. This is where this thing you may have heard about where Scientologists aren't allowed on the internet comes from. It's not that Scientologists are not allowed on the internet, but what they are allowed to consume is very
Limited.
monitored and very limited. And Scientology is a snitch culture.
Oh, wait.
Scientology
So,
has specific rules that if you see somebody doing something bad, if you know about somebody doing something bad and you don't report it, and then it later gets found out, and they find out that you knew about it, you are culpable for the same penalties as the person who did the thing.
my gosh, that's
So I know multiple people who got kicked out of Scientology because they were online reading articles, reading message boards about people who had left Scientology, and one of their kids, one of their children saw this and reported it.
oh my
Multiple
gosh.
people.
That's so insane. So like okay, I had a good question I was trying to think of. I'm trying to think of again. So oof, dang it, what was it? It was so good. It was a good question. It was a good follow-up question to that. So it's if anything, so, so a lot of these rules and regulations, they really just make it so you're just so reliant on the church, and it's just insane to me. It's just so do you that question is going to come up again. So we're just going to move on for now. But
Hmm.
so you all it makes sense that all the information you were being fed was about Scientology. Like it was all that Scientology is true and all of it, like all of what we're saying is
Yeah,
true. So
yeah.
when did you start to turn away from the church? Like how did you start to know that like it wasn't right?
So I always struggled. Like I always really, really struggled with um some of the things that we were being taught in the church. I, like many autistic people, have a really strong sense of justice and a strong um, revulsion towards injustice and double standards and hypocrisy. And in Scientology, especially when you start working for the church and especially when you join the Sea Org, and like I was in a middle management position. I was like managing half of the United States basically. 32 of the churches in the US. I was responsible for a portion of those. And the amount of like red tape and double standards and just like this policy says to do this thing and this policy says to do that thing and they directly conflict, but you've been taught for the past 10 years that nothing L. Ron Hubbard ever wrote actually contradicts with each other, so you have to somehow like mesh these two things into reality. And then
Gosh.
also you have three people standing behind you screaming at you to get things done, and I mean screaming, or sending you to scrub dishes or punishments or whatever if you don't get this impossible thing done. And so like like 2 years of that, and I finally was just like, this is insane. Like I can't do this anymore. I have to escape. Um, which was when I got pregnant, and was forced to have an abortion, and then got put through re-education. And the re-education worked, re-education camp worked, and I was like gung ho and back on board again. And then after like a year of being gung ho and like back on board and feeling like I was doing really well, they were like, okay, great, we're going to send you out on a mission. We're going to send you out. And similar to like Mormon missionaries, where they send you out with like a buddy and you
Yeah.
go out to like get a specific thing done. Um, in this case, they sent me out to Silicon Valley to Mountain View because that church was going to be opening up. I'm skipping some details here because it's not
That's
important,
fine.
but I was out, and I was out for like 2 years with very little supervision, which meant I could get like an unmonitored cell phone, and start going
That
on
was my
Reddit and
question.
start
Oh my
like
god, I
talking to
that
people.
was my question. You just reminded me. That was my question I've been trying to remember. So with cell phones, do they monitor everything you do? Like computers, cell phones,
Yes.
do they so they literally look at
So
everything you're looking at?
So, if you are a public Scientologist, you don't work for the church. The way that they find these things out is through people snitching on you, people in your life who write reports about you, or interrogations. Like literally, you have to pay a bunch of money to go get auditing, and then they say, okay, the auditing you're going to get is an interrogation, and we're gonna just ask you all these questions about all the bad things you've done until you tell us every single bad thing you've done. And by that point, you're so indoctrinated that you feel guilty for looking at stuff online, so you tell them willingly.
Yeah.
In the Sea Org, you're not allowed to have a cell phone at all unless it is issued by the church. So like
That makes
the
sense. That
communications
makes sense.
department has phones, they have like, spy tracking equipment on them, the whole shit. So anything that you do with that phone, they can see it, they can track it, whatever. What ended up happening with me was that about 6 months into my mission, I dropped my phone in the toilet by accident and it broke. And I called back to base in LA and I was like, I need a new phone. And they were like, okay, send us your old phone and we'll send you a new phone in like 3 weeks. And I was like, I don't think you understand. Like, I need a new phone right fucking now. So I was just like, whatever, hung up, went to a staff member in that church and I was like, hey buddy, you used to sell cell phones. Can you get me a cheap like cell phone right away? And he was like, yeah, of course. So I just purely by accident got an unmonitored cell phone. And because PDA autism, I pretty quickly started using it to just like go on Reddit and read fan fiction and like dick around all day instead of doing
Yep.
what I was supposed to do.
Yup. And then, oh my God, I can't imagine what you started reading
A
about.
lot of smut, a lot of smut. I will be just straight up lots of gay Avengers fan fiction.
That is so valid for you. With what you were raised in, that is so valid. That is,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
so valid.
Scientology is also extremely homophobic. Very
Yeah.
homophobic and like weirdly transphobic. And I say weirdly because Scientology is all about you're not your body, you're a being, whatever, whatever. Um, and yet somehow they're still like, but trans people are not valid. Like gender is binary and you are whatever your
But
body's
you're an
gender
immortal
is.
being, but like,
But you're an immortal spiritual being, but
yeah,
also you're a woman.
make it make
Um,
sense. Okay.
right. But it's extremely homophobic. So literally my first like positive exposure to any kind of gayness was erotic Avengers fan fiction.
No, literally, I love that. That's so valid. That is so valid. Like I honestly I love that for you. Like I love that was
Yeah,
kind of
it was
your
great.
first
I still have a soft spot. There's a few fics that I still have bookmarked that I'll like return to and be like, oh, nostalgia.
So when you were reading this stuff, so did you just like pop up upon an article or a Reddit thread that was like, here's why Scientology's
No,
bad?
no. So I was still like, I don't want to say true believer because there are people in Scientology who are very like fervent true believers.
Yeah, I
Like
know what you mean.
this is the way.
But you were
But I didn't
trying
want
to
to get in
be.
trouble. I was trying to be
Yeah.
good. I was doing my
Yeah.
best to be
Or they're
good and I
good,
was
their quotations of good. Like you were trying to be their
yeah,
version of good and fit into the box that they were trying to like shove
right.
you in.
Like exactly. So I was doing my best.
I
Um
think that's how I felt about the Mormon church, is that it didn't necessarily align with who I was. And it just made me feel bad about myself over and over and over
mhm
again. I was like, because I always felt
mhm
like I was in this loophole of I'm not being spiritual enough. I'm not being good enough. I didn't pray enough. I didn't read the scriptures enough today.
mhm
And I'm like, it was just this constant cycle of you're not being good enough because you're not being spiritual enough because there's people over
right.
there reading their Bible all day. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Similar, very similar type of thing.
Yeah.
Except that when you work for the church, you are also real there's a lot of pressure to perform. There's a lot of pressure
Yeah.
to specifically um make the graph go up. Everything in Scientology, everything in a Scientology church has a statistic associated with it, has graphs associated with it. Every week you report at the end of the week, like, here's what we did. And if the line on the graph isn't going up, like, you're in big fucking trouble. So there's that aspect to it as well. So I was simultaneously like trying to make line go up, trying to do Scientology correctly, trying to be a true believer, trying to do all this stuff with absolutely no outlet, like absolutely no self-expression, like no fancy nail polish, no wacky earrings, no crazy makeup, can't dye your hair, can't like cut it into any kind of crazy style. Like you have to
Okay.
look like a full 50s housewife vibe
I was about
basically,
that's
or
literally
like
what I was thinking. I was
corporate
like,
girl boss.
yeah.
Um, it's very, very, very limited to like who you are allowed to be. What I was doing was essentially just letting off steam. Like I specifically never searched for or looked at a single like anti-Scientology thing until after I had left. Because
Wow.
once I had left, I was like, I guess I'm gone. Like I can't there. you know, they
They
might
can't
as
get me
well.
anymore, you know?
Yeah, so the way that I left was like escaped in the middle of the night
Yeah,
type
I was about
beat.
that was my next
And
question was
I
like,
will I will finish
yeah,
telling the whole story, but the way that I left basically guaranteed that they were going to declare me a suppressive person and kick me out
yeah,
of the church. So I was just like, it can't get worse. Like
aw,
I might as well finally read all this shit that I've been avoiding, because
yeah.
like what are they going to do? Double declare me? Like sure, fucking go for it.
Right? I was
Um
like, yeah.
so I was on Reddit. I was on Reddit a lot. I was basically just like reading
We
fan
love
fiction and
Reddit.
like going on Reddit. And I like started meeting people through Reddit and started just talking to people. There's a bunch of subreddits that are literally dedicated to just like meeting strangers, talking to strangers online. And I got really active in those subreddits and started talking to a bunch of different people. Didn't tell any of them that I was a Scientologist, didn't tell any of them I was in the Sea Org, just kind of was like role playing and pretending that I had a normal life,
Yeah.
and got to a point where I was like, number one, I wish I had a normal life. Like, that seems like a way better life than I have right now. Number two, I am like actively suicidal, and I have reached a point where I need to either fucking just kill myself or leave, because like there's not another option. Um, and number three, I was like really, really horny. I really wanted to just fuck around. I never had a hoe phase. Like I had a boyfriend when I was a teenager. I had sex with him. I got in trouble for it. I had my husband who was abusive, and like one or two other people that I had had sex with ever. And I was just like, I want
You
to
were
go be a
reading these
hoe.
Avenger fanfics. You just wanted it.
Yeah, I
And
was like,
hey, I've read smut
how come
before.
Captain
I know what's
America
in
gets
there.
that?
You wanted what was in that smut.
Right. So I was just like, you know what? I fuck it. Fuck it, we ball. So I was talking to somebody at the time who lived in Minnesota, and I finally was just like, I hit it off really well with him, had a crush on him, whatever, and I was just like, hey, I have to confess something to you. And I told him like I'm in the Sea Org, here's my whole deal, whatever, whatever. And also I need you to help me escape. And he was
Oh
like, what the fuck? It
my
turns
god.
out that he had been involved with Anonymous like back in the early 2000s, and he had been part of like the protests and stuff that had happened at that
What?
time. And so
Oh.
he was a like computer security guy, so he actually knew a lot more than I did about Scientology, and he also knew like how to help me escape. So he was like, give me like a day. Let me talk to my therapist about this. Let me talk to my friends about this. Let me make sure that I'm not like about to let a crazy person into my home or whatever. Like, this is very sudden. We've only been talking for like 2 days. And I was like, yeah, no, for sure. Totally valid. Totally acceptable. I am on a time crunch. At some point, they're going to call me back to LA, and I can feel that timer is starting to like tick down.
Yeah.
So I do hope you say yes, but I'm going to like back off, give you your space, let you like talk to your people. He got back to me the next day. He was like, okay, everybody agrees, like, you do have to bring money, like, you do have to pay me. If you're gonna rent a room, like, I need all the money up front for the year, for the rest of the year. So I took out a loan. I like called a fucking loan shark, payday place, and got a loan because I had been making $50 a week
I was about to
or
say
less for
pennies
the past
basically from
12
what you were saying.
years.
Yeah.
Yep, I had no savings account. I had one credit card, which was like a joint card with my husband that he could like access. I had a bank account with like maybe $100 in it, and that was it. So I took out a loan. Um, and then he just like talked me through it. This was, I think, on a Thursday. Yeah, this was on a Thursday that he said yes. So Friday, I got the loan. I went to Walmart or Walgreens or whatever and got a prepaid Visa card, and then sat in like the parking lot and used the like Walgreens Wi-Fi or whatever to use the prepaid card to book a flight for Saturday morning, like the earliest Saturday morning flight that I
Oh.
could. And then I just had to get through the rest of Friday. Just had to like make it through the rest of Friday without letting on.
Yeah.
Um, I had been already kind of thinking about leaving for a couple of months. So I had gone on Amazon and I Googled and I like found, best travel backpack, best backpack for like backpackers in Europe or whatever. Got home, stuffed all my shit in there, waited for my roommate to leave to go to the gym because he every Friday night went to the gym for like 4 hours.
Well,
Um, yep, I had
honestly.
like set up a bunch of routines so that nothing would seem out of the ordinary. And then he left, waited like 30 minutes, took a carry-on suitcase and my backpack. like whatever I could fit in those, called an Uber, went to the airport, waited, stayed up all night in the airport lounge because by the time I got to the airport, it was like midnight. So I stayed awake until security reopened at like 5 a.m., which was like the scariest night of my life
No,
because
I was gonna say that
if
must have been so terrifying, and I'm
it
so
was
proud of
so
you.
fucking scary, dude.
I'm
It
just so
was,
proud of you. Like hearing this, I cannot imagine the amount of fear that they were gonna catch you, that they were gonna know you were at the airport. And
oh yeah.
I'm so proud of you for staying in the airport for 5 hours and being like, this is what I need, and just like sticking through it because that's fucking amazing. And that is
Thank you.
that I'm just I don't even have words like that. I'm just so proud of you. I can't imagine that 5 hours like that. Just
It was
I'm proud of
the
that like
worst.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say I can't because that just I'm just
Mhm.
so proud of you for staying and doing that and sticking with it because that's fucking amazing,
Mhm.
and you deserve all of the the praise for
Thank
that.
you. I
So,
appreciate it. It was
yeah.
the guy did like stay on the phone with me for a lot of the time. We were texting. I had some other people I was texting and like keeping me company more or less.
Wow.
But I, went and kind of like hid in the most secluded lounge area I could
Yeah.
find and like just fucking waited and like prayed and was just like,
Right.
please don't notice I'm gone. Please don't notice I'm gone. Please don't, like, you know what I mean? I did
Yeah.
everything I could fucking think of, but please don't notice I'm gone. And then security opened. I went, I got in, like my flight was not for another couple hours, but I went and like
You
sat at
were
my
in
gate and I was like,
security
I'm
though.
in, I'm
You were
through
in.
security, I'm safe, I got
That's
it.
the safe zone is when you're past
Mm-hmm.
security.
Mm-hmm.
That
Um,
must have been so nice, like walking through the security and just being like, you didn't even
oh
have to
my
be on the
God, I'm
plane to know
free.
you're free. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Like, that must have been
It
probably
was
the most
phenomenal.
comfortable flight. Like, I can like, usually flights are like, "Oh, I hate flights," but that must have been like, "I'm free. I'm free."
It was wild. It was a wild flight. And then of course when I touched down in Minnesota, like I turned on my phone and it was like 200 missed calls, 50 missed texts, like 75 voicemails. Yeah, they went fucking crazy looking for me. Scientology has a thing, so the Sea Org specifically has a thing that they do called a blow drill. If you leave Scientology without permission, it's called a blow. You're blowing. And if a Sea Org member escapes, immediately what happens is a bunch of people jump into action and everybody has like a job that they do. So some people who are like booking agents will go and look at the flight lists and find what flight you're on. Other people will be dispatched to go to like physically go to the local airports, physically go to the bus
No
stations,
wonder
physically
you were
go
so
like
afraid.
any train station, bus station,
That's
any
insane.
way that you could escape. They send people out to physically look for you. They call every single person that you're related to, like everyone that they know that you're related to. They get their contact info and they call them to see if you've gone to go with them or if they know where you're going. Which is why I didn't go to like I have family who are not Scientologists who I'm in contact with now, but that is why I didn't reach out to any of them for help, is because they would have been contacted.
That's I now like even more so I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I really can't imagine the fear that like they
Hmm.
that was smart to get out the time you did because I wonder if your roommate just thought you were asleep in your room. Like I hope that's
He for
probably
sure
what it
did.
was. And that's I
He for
love
sure
that.
did.
I love that and I love that it gave you all the time you needed to escape.
Hmm.
It like it really did.
Yep.
And that
It
I
was it
can't
was a
imagine
plan that
what
I
that
had been
airport
like
looked
kind
like.
of formulating for months. It was the San Jose airport. I'm sure you've been there.
That's like that's they probably were decked out trying to find you. That's insane. Like I can't
Hmm.
I'm just sitting here imagining some dude looking through flight logs like, "Haha, where are they?" Like, what the
Hmm.
fuck? That's insane.
So that's not the end of the story.
I
So
figured.
I get to Minnesota. I meet the guy. He's nice enough. It does turn out that he was an alcoholic, and
Mm,
that is tragic. But whatever. I did not live with him for very long, and he did me an enormous kindness. So
really.
we're gonna say bygones be bygones. He's not in my life anymore. I'm not in his
Yeah.
life anymore. I wish him the best.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say, like, that's kind of where you could be at. It's just I wish you the best, you know? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But so like about a week after I got situated, so like the first 2 days I was just decompressing, just like I watched the South Park episode, I watched a bunch of Scientology documentaries. I like went ham. I was just like, I'm gonna learn about this shit. Um, the agreement that we had made for me to come like live with him basically was like you can have the weekend to decompress, you can have a couple days to decompress, and then you have to get into therapy. even if it's like a free, women's shelter, women's clinic, whatever, like you have to get into some kind of therapy and you have to get a job. And like, I'm not going to kick you out if you don't immediately have a job, but you do have to like start looking right
Yeah.
away. Um, so a whole bunch of things were happening, but I did get a job. I did canvassing for Planned Parenthood for like the November 2018 elections.
Oh, that's so cool.
Um,
That's honestly really
and
cool. Like that's what you were.
yeah,
I
that was like
love
my
that.
first real job.
Like Planned Parenthood,
Um,
yes, love it.
yeah, it was great. It was a lot of just like walking around neighborhoods and knocking on doors and like listening to a podcast and like texting people and going on
That's
Tinder and like
yeah, it's
setting
exactly
up
what you
dates and
needed.
whatever.
That is
Yeah, it
exactly
was
what you
great.
needed.
Um, but I was like at work, I think it was my second day on the job or something, and my roommate like texted me and he's like, "Your brother is here." And I was like, "Excuse me?" He was like, "Yeah, your brother got into the it's like a locked apartment complex. Like he had to weasel his way in, and he's like going around to every door in the building and knocking on all of the doors and like asking for you." And I was like, "Excuse me?" For context, we both grew up in Southern California, lived in the Valley our entire lives, and then later on he moved down to Orange County and like works at the church in Orange County as does my mom.
That's insane.
So they literally took him and like flew him out to Minnesota, found me, tracked me down with like private eyes and shit, and like brought him out to try and retrieve me. Luckily, I was at work at the time. I was not home. So
Yeah,
I
I'm like, thank
had
God you
also
were.
I had also connected with the Aftermath Foundation by that point, and so I called my friends at the foundation. I was like, "What the fuck do I do?" So they like helped me kind of walk through what to do and also what to do if he showed up again, which is good because 2 days later he did show up again. I had been out all night. I had a hookup, and it was like 5, 6 a.m. My hookup was dropping me off at at the apartment, and I'm like walking up from his car to my apartment complex door, and from like the back parking lot, my little brother comes fucking running up to me and like tackle hugs me, like full body, like full
Wait,
bear
what?
hug.
So what happens after that then?
So this poor guy sitting in his car watching this all happen was just like, what the fuck? Um, I pushed him off. I like backed up a step, so I was right by the door. I pushed him off and I was like, don't touch me. I'm not a Scientologist anymore. I'm no longer a part of the church. I don't have any desire to be part of the church. I know you're here to try and take me back, and I need you to not. Like, don't talk to me. I didn't give you permission to be here. I didn't tell you where I am. This is creepy and it's not okay, and you're stalking me. Like, I had rehearsed a whole little
That's what they
speech.
told you to say, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's
Thank you,
because I was
Aftermath,
just
by the way.
like,
That's cool that they have like an
yeah,
organization for that. I didn't even know that. That's really fucking
yeah,
cool. They have organizations
yeah.
for people who are escaping that kind of stuff. I fucking love that. Like, thank
Specifically
God.
Scientology. So the Aftermath Foundation is specifically a foundation for people who are escaping Scientology.
That's
Um,
so
they
awesome.
they paid off my loan shark loan. They fully paid it off because it was like 25% interest or something. It was fucking crazy. They
That's
fully paid
so
off my loan shark loan.
awesome.
They fronted me some money, like they gave me like $1,500 for food and clothes because it was winter. It was about to be winter in Minnesota, so
That's
I needed like snow boots and a
amazing.
jacket and like all this shit. And then they helped me get a car. They put the down payment down on my car.
That is so amazing. I didn't even know that was a
Yeah,
thing. And that's fucking awesome. So did your
yeah,
brother leave
they're
you
phenomenal.
alone after that? Did you just like walk into your apartment and then like be like,
Essentially. So he was very taken aback. He was like, "What are you saying? I don't understand what you're saying. Like you're not being yourself, whatever, trying to like get through to me or whatever."
yeah,
And I was just like, "This isn't the conversation. We're not having this conversation. You need to leave. You're trespassing." And I like pushed him to the side, unlocked the door, went in, closed it, locked it, like made sure it was fully locked, and then I called the cops. And I was just like, "Hey, I'm being stalked. Like there's stalkers here. He's outside my apartment. Like he's trespassing. Come get him." Filed a police report. They came, they talked to him, he left. Uh, that was the last time I ever saw my little brother. I haven't talked to him since.
so I'm guessing he's still in Scientology then.
He's very much still in Scientology. Yeah, he works for the church in Orange County. As far as I know, my mom also still works for the church in Orange County. My family, my mom and my brother specifically, are like die-hard believers, very much in like to the death. So I don't have. Like in, I think, January 2019, after I had like settled a little bit, I reached out to my mom. I sent her a text using somebody else's phone. I sent her a selfie, and I was just like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I'm doing okay and I miss you. And she was like, why are you texting me?
Because you were
And I
seen
was
as a
like,
suppressive person now, right?
yep, yep. And I was like, well, you're my mom and I miss you. And she's like, if you miss me, come back and like leave properly, follow the like procedures to officially, not be in the Sea Org anymore. And which includes like hours and hours and hours of interrogation and public
Yeah,
humiliation
no,
and
nothing. Yeah,
like
no.
physical labor. And I was like, no, I'm absolutely not doing that. I'm not a Scientologist anymore. I respect you. I respect your religion. I'm not going to talk shit about it. I would love to have my mom back. And she was like, sucks to suck, basically. If you're not going to come back and do it, then you don't have a mom anymore.
So
So
have you been able to heal from all this? Like, have you in a way, like obviously you can't heal completely, but have you been able to like
yeah,
the last 2 or 3 years since using candy and you're following and all this, like the connections you've made, have you been able to heal at least somewhat from a lot of the stuff you've had to deal with?
in a lot of ways, for sure. Like I am very lucky to have the group of like found family that I do now. I have two phenomenal partners who I live with, and like I'm very, very lucky to do so. They take care of me very well, just like making sure that I eat, making sure that I sleep, um,
Feel that.
you know, all that stuff.
I love that. I'm glad
I
you have a good support
Yeah.
system because I feel like that above everything else is what keeps people okay, just in any situation and
Hmm.
trauma, is it's having a support system to remind you that, hey, you did the right thing. You're okay. We're moving forward and it's so it's so amazing to hear. Like, I don't not I mean, I'm trying to think of the right word because obviously your situation was fucking horrible, but the
Yeah.
amount of strength that you had to have to deal and go through with leaving, I had like I watched your videos about it on TikTok, but hearing it now, I can't even imagine the amount of fear you felt and the amount of bravery and strength you had to have to leave. And I just really want to repeat, like, give you props for that because that's just fucking amazing. And to see
I
like
really
how
appreciate that.
like you just flourish so much, and to see your candy wall now, like you just never would guess that like that was your past, just like
Hmm.
no one would guess I was fucking Mormon for most of my life.
Yeah.
But that's just the
Yeah,
amount
nobody
of
would ever
strength
guess.
I just you are such a strong person for just having to do that. Like I can't it literally puts chills down my whole body thinking about having to deal with that. And especially after you continue saying, oh yeah, they send people out to go find you. Like that's just
Oh yeah.
like that is so
I
invasive, so
appreciate that.
gross. And you just deserve so many props for that. So now that we've
Thank
kind of
you.
talked about guys, the problems with Scientology,
Yeah.
now this is the nitty gritty of the video, which is how did you find out Sullivan King was affiliated with with Scientology?
So I actually didn't know his real name for like a long time. I just knew Sullivan King. And then last year, I think it was, somebody like it started circulating on Twitter again and Reddit and whatever. It was like, hey, Sullivan King's a Scientologist. And I was like, what? So then I looked into it and I saw his real name and I was like, I know that guy. So I went to a Scientology school in Los Angeles. There were at the time that I was there were three Scientology schools or four. And like all of the kids of like a certain age kind of just knew each other. If you don't know somebody directly, you're like friends with their cousin or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's a very small community, it's very
Yeah.
tight knit. Like everyone knows everyone else. So at that time I believe he was homeschooled or he went to Delphi. Like he didn't go to the same school that I went to, but his cousin went to the same school that I went to, and she was one of my best friends. So I knew about him and his brother through her because his part of the family was like the rich part of the family. She was in the like more lower middle class
No
financial,
way.
whatever.
Okay.
And those were the rich cousins. So 100%, 100 million percent, I know for a fact that he was born and raised in Scientology because I knew that family growing up. Um, and so then looking into the Twitter thing and whatever, there are online databases that exist that show every single person that has ever completed any service in Scientology. It has their name, it has what they completed, it has when they completed it,
These are the
and it
paid
also
classes you were talking about, right?
these
Like
are the
the
paid
classes you
paid
pay
classes,
fifty,
paid
100,
auditing levels. Yeah,
2,500.
exactly,
Jesus
all the paid
Christ.
stuff, right? Now in the past like decade or so, they have stopped publishing those as much. Occasionally, you'll still find like up-to-date information. A lot of the information that's out there is really old because Scientology hates the internet and got
Mm,
wise to the fact that people were documenting everything that they were doing.
yeah.
So it is a little harder now unless you have like a mole inside the church to find out who's doing what. But looking into it, what we did find is records showing that in the past like 5 years or so, his wife and his brother have both completed high level services, meaning in order to get to that point and through that point, they have easily paid over $50,000 to the church. I think in Maddie's case, it was closer to like $100,000 to get to that
So
level that she
you
was
would say
at.
his wife's more in it, which I mean,
His wife and his brother are both,
which
as
says a
far
lot
as
with
I
what
can
you were
tell,
saying, right?
actively in it.
With the whole
Hmm.
suppressive person and everything. He has to be in it if she's doing the classes because then they would they
Right.
right?
He minimally has to be supportive of Scientology and has to be
Right?
giving money to
Right?
Scientology
I was like,
because she has to pay for those services somehow. And
yeah.
again, I am totally willing to be wrong here. If someone wants to come up and be like, actually, here's her business where she makes money and she's paying for it all herself, and like no, Sullivan King isn't giving any money at all to the church, I would be stoked if that was the case. I would be
Right?
100% stoked. I will
Give
eat
us
my
the
words.
information. Let's
Right.
see it. Give it.
But based on how the church works, right,
Which you
you
have
have
well knowledge
to pay
of.
money. Yeah, you have to pay money in order to do those services. The level that she was at is a lot of fucking money to get there. And when you are in Scientology and you are actively doing Scientology, you don't just pay for the services you receive. You are also like required to donate on top of that for additional causes.
Dang.
And they know how much money you make. Like if you're a celebrity, they know how much money you're making. And so they're
Yeah.
not going to be like, yeah, give us $50 and go away. They're going to be like, hey, you made $1 million last year. We better see like a commensurate donation here. Like you're saying you can't afford to give us $5,000. I think you're lying
So your
and
video
make
on
it
him
10.
your video on him and even mine repeating your info went pretty viral. I would say yours went really big too. Do you think he
Yeah.
saw the video, heard about it, and chose not to respond? Either one of ours. I would say more yours so, but do you think he
I would
saw?
be
I think there's a
I would be
fifty-fifty chance,
surprised if
honestly.
he hasn't seen something about it, whether it's my
Right?
video, your video, the Reddit
Right?
posts, the Twitter posts.
Has to
Like
be
it's
he
gone
has to
around
know.
enough times that I'm sure someone in his orbit at least has seen it or has
Or
heard
has
about it.
mentioned it to
Here's the
him.
thing. Here's the thing, right? Even if, best case scenario, he is not a Scientologist, is not a true believer, does not want to be associated with the church, in order for him to stay married to his wife, the mother of his child, who, as far as we can tell, is like a true believer,
Is
still
deep
doing
in it, yeah.
services, if he wants to maintain contact with his entire family, who are all Scientologists and like deep in it, actively doing services, he cannot speak out against the church, right? And
It's
so
true.
if he is in a position where he doesn't believe but is still donating money, that's kind of chicken shit. I'm gonna be honest. Like I am standing here having left, having lost my family, calling it out,
Literally, if
and
there's anybody who can, it's you, honestly. Like it that
yeah, it's not a black and white situation. It's not like Sullivan King bad,
yeah, it's a
but
giant gray area.
it is a huge gray area. But it is also like be mindful of where your money is going.
Literally.
Scientology specifically is a cult based on money. It is a giant like MLM basically.
Yeah.
So if somebody is in Scientology or their loved one is in Scientology and they are supporting that loved one being in Scientology, that money is actively going
Yup.
to a cult that harms people. There are still people in the Sea Org being forced to have abortions. There are still people in Scientology being forced to cut off contact with their loved ones or be kicked out of
Or
the
be
only
victim shamed
organization that they
for
know.
them being sexually assaulted. That's
There,
the one
yes,
that one gets me really. Do you
yeah,
think you'll ever come out publicly if he's no longer practicing?
man, I fucking hope so. Like, there are
Really?
more
Like,
and more
right?
people. there are more and more people who are coming out against the church, and I really hope, like, one of the things that the whole Danny Masterson trial has finally done is shown that, like, Scientology doesn't always win. They have a reputation for being extremely like litigious,
They won for
and
a long time, unfortunately.
they won a lot of lawsuits against them. It's really, really hard to win against them in court. But something that this Masterson case did when he lost was give hope to a lot of survivors.
Literally.
And the church continuing to back him and continuing to support him, even when it has been shown beyond a shadow of a doubt that he
Did these
did
things. He
rape
did
those
these
women,
things.
he
Yeah.
absolutely did those things, I think is a huge wake up call for a lot of people. And like I hope
I hope he does
I
too. Like, I
yeah.
think that this is kind of goes to the next question. It's why it's important to know this information. Like, there's gonna be people being like, "Well, I'm still gonna support him." I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
you can give your money that is to his merch to Scientology because that's where it's going. I want you to know that when you buy his
Mhm.
merch, when you buy his tickets, you are like, I guess, indirectly supporting Scientology because
Indirectly
you
supporting Scientology.
right now, you are listening to this, right? You are hearing this information, knowing what's wrong with Scientology, hearing what's wrong with it. You have a person right here saying how damaging it is, and you're like, "Oh, I don't care though." Then you need to make better choices about who you support. There are literally so many artists in the EDM scene. It's oversaturated too. Find one of those that's not
Mhm.
in Scientology. That is like it.
Yeah,
He's
and there is like the things that I see people bringing up so much are like, well, this person is a Mormon or this person is like super Christian. I think Porter Robinson got a lot of heat recently for being part of that fucking mega church that Chris Pratt is in or something like that. I did not keep up with it.
I don't know, to be
But
honest. I
like there
think
was,
there's
I
a
mean, my
difference.
comment section went fucking wild,
There's a difference
but
with, like, I know with the Mormon church, especially. I was in the Mormon church. There is vivid differences on the Scientology and
mhm,
Mormon church, like vivid differences. One of them
yeah.
being like just we don't victim shame. There's like a no, there's not a control aspect in the Mormon church. Like there's a difference with with the Scientology and with the IDLP or with FLDS. There is a vivid difference between those
Mhm.
three things and even other cults and stuff than compared to Christianity or Mormonism or what. Like there's just such a difference, and like I think it's people just don't. They want to like bring out the narrative that works for them,
Mhm. Yeah.
so it's
So
easier to digest for them. Like,
it's ultimately like Scientology is so money based more so than any other
I could,
like
yeah,
of the
sounds like
big
it.
cults or the big religions or anything. Like it is so 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 specifically money based that like even if another DJ is a Mormon or is a Christian or is whatever, there's not the same level of guarantee that that money is going to that
Yeah,
organization.
there's tithing and stuff with Mormonism, but like it's it there's just such a difference. And I really hope that Sullivan King, at least at like some point, if you're gonna be a Scientologist, say with your chest, man.
Right.
Like, if you're
Right.
gonna be a
Like say what you're
Scientologist, be
doing. Like do it or
literally.
don't fucking do it.
Yeah, it's like I either respond like I just think he's I think yeah, you said it. It's kind of chicken shit that he hasn't responded. He's just like,
Yeah.
it's not. I'm sorry, dude. It's not going to go away. If
He's in a
if
tough
no one's
position. I
talking
get
about it,
it.
I am dead. If one person is talking about it, it is me. And if there is multiple people talking about it, I'm definitely one of them. So like, it's not going to go away, my
Yeah.
guy. I'm going to keep bringing it up because it's important. Maybe it's the justice thing you were talking about earlier, but I think it's so
Yeah.
messed up that all these people are like supporting him and just indirectly giving money to Scientology. Like,
Mhm.
and now you know. So if you're buying his merch, I want you to know some of that's going to Scientology, and I hope you're okay with that. Because I know a lot of people do want to know, and you've said this before, where their money goes. Like
Yeah.
after like I bet Subtronics probably
Yeah.
buy some weed with my shit.
I hope
Like,
he does. I hope he has I
I
hope he
hope you
smokes a
buy
great bowl. I
Jesse.
hope we paid for
I
part
hope
of
you
his
get
wedding.
really. I was like, Jesse, I hope that when I buy stuff from you, that it goes directly to the bowl you're smoking right now. I hope so. Like, there's a
Right?
difference, you know. I
Yeah,
really
dude. Fucking those wedding photos, those like wedding videos that came out from their wedding the other day. Sonia looked so fucking cute. They looked like they were having such a good time, and I was just like, that's why I buy the merch. That's why I
yeah,
buy the
like
tickets. I hope
it's
you guys had an
important to
amazing
know.
day.
It's important to talk about and be aware of where money's going. And ever since the
Mhm.
Sullivan King information came out, that's what I've always thought about. Like I had
Yep.
one of my friends let me borrow her Sullivan King pass for Base Canyon in 2021, and I just think about that probably went right to the church. They probably went right to the church. Like, that's what I think about now. I can't stop the brain loop that's in my brain.
Right. And like, here's the thing: if it's not true, if it's straight up not true, if they've left the church, if they're not doing services anymore, please say something. Like, tell me I'm wrong. This is something I would be so stoked if someone could show me proof that they are not, they're done.
Like, there are times I love to be wrong. Like, please tell me I'm wrong. I will happily take my pride is not too big. I know I'm a Leo, but my pride is not too big.
Yeah. So I'm just like, I don't fucking know, man.
This is a really important conversation to have, I think, because the whole like cancel culture thing is like a whole topic right now. But I don't think this is cancel culture. We're not trying to cancel Sullivan King. We're trying to say, hey, this is where your money's going when you buy his stuff. So like, just so you know.
Right. But I actually, you know what? I'm gonna divert a little bit onto the subject of cancel culture, because I saw that whole interview that Taboo did with oh my God, I'm forgetting their name. But Taboo did a whole like hour and a half long interview with a representative from like the LGBTQ education center. And it was super good. Like, that is a fucking great way to respond
honestly,
to
you want to know what I think? I'm gonna say, maybe people don't agree with me, but like I 100% believe that the reason he put that out is because Sarah has been talking about on TikTok all the shit he's been doing.
I fucking hope so.
Like, I think that somehow he found out people were talking about it, and that he was like, "Oh,
people have been loud about it. EDM Twitter has been loud about it.
I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter, but like,
that's totally fair.
Cancel culture is only a thing if you're not fucking accountable.
Right. I'm not interested in, like, I don't want Sullivan King to go away. I don't want Skrillex to go away. I don't want Taboo to go away. I just want them to learn and use their platforms to uplift people. Like, that's
if you
all
have
I want
a
to do.
platform, you should be using it for good. And like, that's why, like, I don't know. I really hope he comes out about it. I don't know if he will. And also, props to Taboo. You know, props to Taboo. I will give him that. You know, he said some fucked up things, and Sarah and they've told me I know what they've said, and I always want people to be better, and I always want to hope that people are better. So I do hope that Sullivan King is out of Scientology and that he's just not speaking about it because he doesn't want to lose his whole family. But at the same time, I'm literally talking to someone right now who's been through that process, and they're, you know, I just don't think it's an excuse anymore. I just if you say it's not an excuse, I'm gonna be like, not an excuse. Like, if there's anybody who can, it's you. So all right, well, we've been talking for like 3 hours now. I have work soon. But I want to get this episode recorded. I'm so glad we could talk about the Scientology stuff. It's something I've really been wanting to talk about, especially since Sullivan King is such a big artist in the scene. Like, he's part of the Forbidden Four that performed at Base Canyon. When I tell you, I was sitting there like, anyways, my friends were all like, you know, but I was just like, anyways, so I just think it's important to talk about, and even if someone listening is still like, oh, I don't care, then you know what, they don't care, but at least we're here to inform the people, and we can let people know, and then they can make their own decision based upon the information. So thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for being with me on these 2 episodes. Actually, I'm really glad we decided to make it 2 episodes, because this was really long, and I am gonna need to make this 2 parts. It's okay, you're right. I'll allow it. But yeah, I'm just so glad we had this conversation. Thank you guys for listening. So we will see you guys online.